8 years ago, my entire world fell apart the night my husband Tom uncovered the truth about my affair with my boss, David. For months, Tom had quietly grown suspicious. The late meetings, unexpected business trips, and the silence that slowly settled between us had all raised questions. When he finally confronted me with the emails, I couldn't deny the truth. The pain in his eyes said everything. What happened wasn't some great love story. It was the result of a series of selfish choices I made during a time when I felt unhappy and disconnected in my marriage. I had worked at the company for 5 years when David gradually became someone I trusted. He was charming, successful, and gave me the attention I believed I was missing at home. What began as harmless conversations slowly crossed every boundary. I convinced myself that the secrecy brought excitement into my life, but it was nothing more than an illusion that eventually destroyed everything I valued. The night Tom found out, he didn't shout or argue. He simply looked at me with heartbreak and disappointment before walking out the door. 2 days later, he returned only to collect his belongings. Soon after, he filed for divorce, and I didn't fight it because I knew I had caused the damage. I resigned from my job, left David behind, and moved into a small apartment where the silence reminded me every night of the life I had thrown away. Our divorce was finalized within 6 months. We had no children, which made the legal process easier, but emotionally it was devastating. Friends drifted away, families became divided, and I found myself completely alone. I started over at a smaller company where nobody knew my past, but I couldn't escape the guilt and regret that followed me everywhere. No matter how busy I stayed, the emptiness remained. Eventually, I sought therapy. It forced me to face painful truths I had avoided for years. I realized the affair had never really been about David. It reflected the problems within me and the issues in my marriage that I had chosen to ignore instead of confronting honestly. By running away from those problems, I had destroyed the person I loved most. Meanwhile, Tom rebuilt his life. Within a year, he began dating again and eventually met Emily, a kind, steady woman who gave him the peace I never could. Hearing that they were happy was painful, but it also brought relief because he deserved a future free from the hurt I had caused. 3 years after our divorce, we met again at a mutual friend's wedding. We exchanged polite words, but the distance between us was impossible to ignore. Seeing the sadness that briefly crossed his face brought all my guilt rushing back. I continued therapy and later joined a support group where people affected by infidelity shared their stories. Listening to both betrayed partners and those who had betrayed helped me understand the lasting consequences of my actions. It taught me that healing begins only when you stop making excuses and accept responsibility. By the 5th year after our divorce, I slowly began rebuilding my life. I started a small business with a colleague, fulfilling a dream I had always been too afraid to pursue. Around that time, I learned Tom had proposed to Emily. I genuinely felt happy for him, even though part of me quietly grieved the life I had lost through my own choices. 8 years later, Tom and Emily were happily married and welcomed their first child. I sent them a congratulatory card without expecting a reply. To my surprise, Tom contacted me and invited me for coffee. He explained that he wanted closure, not reconciliation. We talked honestly about our lives and the people we had become. He admitted the affair had shattered him, but he also recognized that our marriage had already been struggling. He shared his own regrets about not noticing the distance growing between us. His words didn't erase my mistakes, but they eased a burden I had carried for years. Before we left, Tom told me he had forgiven me, not because I deserved it, but because he wanted to free himself from bitterness and fully embrace his future with his family. We said goodbye knowing our story had truly ended. There was no dramatic reunion, only quiet acceptance and mutual understanding. Today, my business has grown beyond anything I imagined, and I have started dating again with a much healthier perspective. I now understand that happiness isn't found in excitement or escape. It comes from honesty, commitment, and the daily effort to build a meaningful life. Looking back, the affair was the worst mistake I ever made, but it forced me to confront truths I had long ignored. I can't change the past, and I will always carry the weight of my choices. Still, that burden has become lighter with time. Losing my marriage taught me the value of honesty, accountability, and self-awareness, lessons that changed me forever.